Elite Gaming.
What's up guys, it's Andrew at EliteGamingHQ, and in this video we're going to do a parts list, and I'm going to show you what you need to build an awesome Intel Coffee Lake PC. This is going to be an i7 build with an RTX 2080. You're going to be able to do some streaming, some 4K gaming, stuff of that nature. But not only that, what I'm going to do as I walk through the parts, I'm also going to show you alternatives to fit your needs. So for example, if you want to stream, what you're going to go with for that. If you want to do a different type of cooler to get a little more out of overclocking or whatever, I'm going to walk you through all that. So this way you kind of have a better understanding. I'm going to try to make it as informative as possible without wasting anyone's time, so that way, you know, there's going to be a lot of information here is basically what I'm trying to say. Next, I want to say that I want to do one of these once a month, but I missed January, so we're going to get two this week. We're going to have this one that's going to be around $1,600, and the one later on in the week that's going to be around $1,000, and that's going to feature an RTX 2060. So if you're interested in that, I know everybody's getting their tax returns, maybe they want a new computer, I'll give you a build list for that. So be sure to turn notifications on, so if you like this series, once a month you get the notifications for me doing this. Also, if you like game deals, live streaming with new games like Apex Legends, I'm also going to do, well, as the free games come out for the game deals, I try to get the video out for you as soon as possible, plus some other deals so you can get the free games to build your libraries. And I also do mod videos and like PC parts and builds and stuff like that. So this is going to be a red themed build, and I'll put a video here of what it actually looks like, or some pictures, just so you get an idea how cool this build looks. And we're also still waiting for a Digital Storm PC. If you don't know, in the channel we're doing a Digital Storm breakdown and review. I bought a PC off their site. I looked at some of the parts, some of the things they offer here. I'll put a link to that video pinned in the first comment below, so we'll be able to check that out. And then also, if you guys don't want to stress test your PC, you don't want to overclock, you don't want to waste any of that time, I also have a build service. I just want to throw that out there. My website is EliteGamingHQ.net. I'll put that in the first comment below as well. So if you want a PC that you can literally get to your house, just turn it on, download your games and play, update the BIOS, update the video graphics, Windows, and I stress test every PC. And I have tons and tons of feedback from customers. You can hit them back and ask them how the PC goes, and everybody has just been so supportive and giving me great feedback on that. So there's that too. Okay, so let's get into the build. Alright, so first, like I said, we're going to do an i7 build. So our first thing is our Intel Core i7 9700K. Now, it's interesting about the 9700K because Intel always did multi-threading, and this series they didn't, and they're getting a lot of heat for it because they made the i9, which technically is this processor but multi-threading. So here's what I'm going to say to you. This is a damn good processor, okay? This processor will be really good for gaming. This is the processor you want if you want to hit 244 hertz on liquid. This is the processor that'll do it. But more or less, most people are going to want to run, I don't know, 144 hertz and like 1440p, or maybe high refresh rate in 4K. This is the best processor that's going to get you there, besides the i9 9900K, and I think that's incredibly overpriced. In fact, I would like to see this $100 cheaper, but this is where it is in the market. So, I mean, you pay more to get the hot new stuff, right? So one thing to keep in mind is K models do not come with a cooler, so we're going to look at a couple different cooler options, but this is basically what it is here. It's going to turbo boost, I don't know, it says 4.9. You can easily get a 5 gigahertz overclock on this thing across all cores, which is the way I should say to go. If not, if you want to rely on turbo, that's an option too if you're afraid to overclock, but really it's so simple. You can go watch a video anywhere. You can actually go to forums and find the exact numbers to punch in for a mild overclock. That's going to give you tons more performance, and you won't really have to stress test it because you just know it's going to work. But if you want to stream, I don't recommend this processor to be the best for streaming. I would actually save money and go back one, and I would put in an 8700K. Now, the last processor, this was from Newegg. That's where I got that price there. But if you go back to B&H, you can get an 8700K. It's going to be a bit cheaper. And here's the main thing. This PC has 12 threads. So basically it has multiple schedulers. It may have 2 less cores, but it's going to act almost as it has 12 cores because it's going to put tasks in a line in which you can achieve them all in a row. Now for streaming, this is a better option. Now there's nothing wrong with this processor whatsoever. These two processors are very similar, but this processor will allow you to do a lot more multitasking. If you're a content creator, you're going to more lean towards this processor, especially if you're a streamer. Now, the other thing I have to tell you is if we're building a PC this powerful, we're going to be using like 1440p at least, right? Or 4K. Now, the further you go down the spectrum of let's get into a higher resolution, you're going to need less processor power. So if you were just building a gaming PC, you might be fine with getting an 8400 i5. Right? If you're going 4K, that's going to be no problem at all. But since we're talking about a beast PC, we're going to get high FPS, we're going to be streaming, then we're going to go with something like this, multi-threads. This is the way to go right here. And once again, these things overclock very well. 4.8 pretty easily, 4.5 across all cores is very easy to achieve. Okay, so that being said, let's move on to the coolers. Oh, I'm sorry, the motherboards. So for the motherboards, I have Z390. We'll just hit this out of the way first before we go into the cooler. So any Z390 board would do fine. There's a lot of them that have bad reviews out there for $100. You go with something like this, like an MSI's trusted. We have expansion spots. We have multiple M.2s. Not that you're really going to use them, but they're there. Only one of them usually is the full speed. But yeah, see, Turbo M.2. This is all you need. It has all the features. If you wanted to spend a lot more money, you could get a dual card setup motherboard. But personally, I don't think there's any point in it. There's never a point to get dual cards unless you're paying a lot more to get. I mean, it's just better to get a better single card, always. Because a lot of programs don't allow you to use dual cards. Number one, they have a lot of problems. And if you're not paying $1,300 for a RTX 2080 Ti and then doubling that, so $2,600 on video cards, there's no point in paying the extra for the processor. Now, different processors are going to have different features, that's true, but this processor is going to have plenty of USB ports, everything you need, and we're going to hook some up in the front. So we're going to be fine on that. This is everything you need, in my opinion. You can search around, but you could buy this and it's going to work fine. Alright, so as far as cooling, this is the best cooler you can buy for your money. The Hyper 212 EVO. It's going to be the best all around. Don't get it wrong. This thing is massive, okay? If you see it in a PC, it's a giant 120mm fan coming off of your CPU, and it's running all heat spreaders right here. These copper pipes are pulling all the heat away. And also another thing you don't have to worry about is the thermal paste. See, if you buy a if you buy a CPU that comes with stock thermal paste, you got to clean that paste off. You got to put on a Go one because that stuff is just garbage. Well, whenever you buy an aftermarket one, it's coming with your thermal compound as well, so you don't need to worry about that here too. It's going to come in a little, like, it's going to be about this big, and you're just going to cut the top of it, and you're just going to squeeze a little pea-size amount on your socket. On the top of your heat spreader. Don't pour it on your socket. I've actually seen somebody do that. And then it's just going to compress around. Don't worry about spreading it or any of that. When the pressure from this here will spread it around the whole heated area. Alright, so if you wanted to pay a little more money, you could go liquid. Now, this is a nice cheap liquid one. I've used this before. Liquid ones are alright. You need a lot of room for this as well, because you don't necessarily want to put something like this in the front because you're going to choke out your air coming in. Air coming in is going to be hot. You want your motherboard to be nice and cool. But with this case in particular, we don't have a 240 up front, so we're going to probably put it in the front if we use this. Now, this case, what's pretty awesome about it, the one I showed earlier, is you can take out that front panel and slide something like this in, and you actually will be able to probably put these two and another intake fan. So there's that. So that's a mild liquid cooler, $70. You might get a little bit more out of it. And then here's a beast right here. This is the one I currently run, is the Kracken X62. This is actually from Walmart, and this is a newer model because this one actually has the RGB. Mine just does a single color white that with the infinity screen, and it looks like it's going in forever like a pit. But these things are phenomenal. Now, here's the point of this. This guy here is going to easily overclock you really high, right? and you're not going to have any thermal issues whatsoever, especially if when you position it, you have the fan pushing through this heatsink, and then you have your exterior exhaust fan also pulling. So you technically got a push-pull thing going on here, and it's just going to pull all the air right out of it. Now, the difference between this high price and this high price is maybe 200 or 300 megahertz. That's a very small percentage to pay all this extra money, but if you want it, there's an option for it, okay? And these are the ones I recommend, not particularly with this case, but what I recommend in general, but it's always going to be something like this that's nice and inexpensive for $26 after your rebate. That's if you do the rebates. I never do. Okay, on to storage. Now I have a couple options here for storage. Firstly, I always love to put my OS and all my operating programs on one super fast drive. And what I recommend for that is the Samsung EVO 970. It's an NVMe. This thing is ridiculously fast. I'm talking you press your button and the computer boots in a couple seconds. The BIOS has to boot first, right? But as soon as Windows kicks in, boom, it's on. And that's it. And then also with a size like 250, if you just want to do some stuff like esports, like Apex Legends, Overwatch, PUBG, stuff like that, it's just going to go there. You're going to have the space, and it's just going to get you in the game quick. You ever seen when people are like loading into the maps and why these games load for a while before they actually launch you into the map? It's because everybody has to load, and with a standard older hard drive, it takes some people a while to get in. I mean, you might be that person. You might know what that's like. Well, this is a game changer. Now how this works is you just go into your motherboard. It fits in right here. It just snaps into place. You take this little screw and you screw it back down on top of it, and it holds it into place. And that's it. There's your M.2. And this thing's a beast. Now, second drive, you need a second drive because that's only 250 gigs. Unless you only ever want to play those games, I recommend something reliable. This SSD is going to come with a couple-year warranty, and it's very inexpensive. These things are down to $60 at some places. You're probably going to have to pay a little bit more for shipping, but 480 gigs, that's where I would put all my games. All my games that are going to be intensive. Now, you also have to understand that not all games are going to benefit from an SSD, but games like Medieval Total War, stuff like that, they're going to need this extra to load into the maps. Any open world game is going to benefit from it, but there's a lot of little games that you could have that are just easy to load and are not. But for this price, having a backup SSD, I think it's a really good idea. Now, or we can go with a Seagate 2 terabyte Barracuda. Now, this is a reliable drive. We're paying $60 and we have 2 terabytes. So in the best scenario, I would recommend this and this, okay? But you could go this and this. But if you're like a content creator and you also game and you want to stream, I would get all 3. Okay, because this is where you're going to store your movies, your recordings. You definitely don't want to be storing your video recordings on stuff like this because that's way too expensive. It's just not practical. Although I say this, but I have like 5 SSDs. But I still do something like this. I have a 3 terabyte spinning drive that I use to store all my data and my movies and stuff. So it's up to you really, but I just wanted to lay it all out there. I personally think going with this and this, if you're a gamer, is the way to go. Just this is probably not enough, and I don't really think it's practical to pay the up price to pay for a 1 terabyte M.2, unless you really have a lot of money. I mean, this is really nice, but I don't really think it's worth it. And the other benefit of this is when you have your Windows key, if stuff starts to go weird and you get a blue screen or you have some registry errors, what you do is you just reformat this. You don't lose the games on this, and you don't lose the data on this. You have Windows again, you acknowledge these 2 drives again, and then boom, you're right back in business. Maybe you download a couple more programs. So that's the huge benefit of having a boot drive. All right, next we're on to our video card. Our video card I have is the EVGA RTX 2080 Black. It works great. I mean, this is exactly what you need. You're going to get Anthem and Battlefield as well for free, which is pretty cool. I already have Battlefield 5 that I got for free, but it's nice to get Anthem. I mean, that's a huge plus. That's a game that everybody's looking forward to, and this is the going price, okay? So these things, when I got mine, it was $6.99, and that was the standard one, which is not so great. EVGA takes these, they break them down. Well, they don't have the coolers on them, but they break them down, designed a cooler, and then they put their own on there. And this is basic as it comes, you know what I mean? But it's everything you need. You have multiple monitor support. This is the way to go, DisplayPort, but you can also attach attachments here if you want to run more screens, but I don't know anybody that's ever going to run more than 3 screens. And the cooler is very attractive. This is going to look really good in your case. Other good brands would be maybe MSI or Gigabyte. So those are some brands that you can look through, and all of them have this promotion right now. So if you want to get Anthem for free, this is the most inexpensive one for price per performance. All right. Next is the tower. This is the H500. Now, NZXT did a lot of changes with these towers, and one thing I really enjoy is the fact that this shroud removes, and they don't have that ridiculous where you had to remove this, slide in your power supply, and then screw it back together. This comes out really good. You do 2 screws, and it opens up like a door, okay? And then this is 1 screw, and then you get right access to all your internal workings. I believe this design is superior. Now, this part is all glass, it's tempered glass, and which is amazing. Now, if you look here, here's how I'm saying there's only a 120 out here. If you wanted to run a big 240 radiator, you could run it right here. And the other thing is, I like to go 2 in, 2 out. And if I'm doing liquid cooling, maybe I'll get a case that has a lot more on the top, because I like that to be an exhaust as well, because it's really stifling the airflow. Alright, I realized that I didn't have the RAM in there, so let's go back and look at the RAM. If you go to Amazon right now, you can get some gaming XPG. Now, you don't really need ridiculous priced RAM. You could go with RGB RAM. I'm a really big fan of TridentZ Gskill. There you go. That's what I have in my PC. I'm running mine directly red color, but you can go whatever you want. We got high speed here, and it's just RAM. There's nothing more about it. We get a dual channel kit. We put it in the 2 slots in which we're going to use dual channel, which I will show you here. It'll be this spot and this spot on this particular motherboard that allow it to use dual channel. Now, I'm a big fan of, instead of doing 4 sticks, I like to do 2 8s. So if we ever do need 32 gigs, highly unlikely anytime soon, if you're building this computer, you're probably going to want another one before we ever get up to using 32 gigs. But just to have it open, I would say do 2. Okay, now there's not really a disadvantage to that, except for aesthetics, I would say. You're not really going to run quad channel RAM, so this is the best I would say to go with. Something like this. So anything that's going to be dual channel, and AMD has a problem running high megahertz RAM, Intel does not. So since we're using an Intel build, why don't take advantage of that and go with something like this off of Amazon. Alright, next, our power supply. Now, people go way overboard with power supplies. They send me their builds list, and I'm like, why are you paying $130 for a 1,000-watt power supply? Even this is overkill, okay? So the reason why I chose this is because it's simple, okay? That case does a good job of hiding wires. You don't actually see the power supply. If we go back to the case, where are we at here? The case, this shroud will hide all the wires. You will not see any of them. And that's one thing I really like about it. So you don't need like semi-modular or modular. And if you wanted to go those banded cables, like braided ones, you can buy them separately and plug them into here. So there's that, but back to the wattage. Okay, I put a video out on YouTube talking about the best power supply for gaming. If you don't really understand about power supplies, I would go check it out. More importantly is the quality of power over the wattage of power. So you want at least 80 plus bronze. If you do not, then even if your power supply says 2,000 watts, it might not ever be able to make anywhere close to what it needs. And that's a problem. So you want something like 80 plus, and we're not running SLIs, so we don't even need a lot of watts. And like I said, this is overkill, but we're gonna run, this PC will probably run about 400, 500 watts. Like honestly, if you go punch this into Cooler Master's power supply calculator, my guess is it's not gonna go over 500 watts. Even with the fans and everything else, we're running SSDs, everything is gonna work great. So here it is right here. I say go with something like this. We're paying 60 bucks. It's a steal right now on Amazon for this power supply. And also, when you position this power supply in your case, one thing I would say is position it down. Some people like to go up. I don't think that's the best way. If you go up, you can do that, but what that's going to do is turn it into an exhaust, and it's going to be feeding off all this heat. Here, the best way is to turn the fan down so it'll make its own atmosphere. So this thing, let me show you here, it'll come in here and it'll go out there. And that's why you have these big standoffs. Come in here and go out here. And another thing that I have to note that a lot of people forget to do is when you air dust this out, because this is getting dusty, make sure you take this little tray out, you clean that, and you blow your power supply out. It'll be one of the first things to fail to get dust on it besides the motherboard, but the motherboard, you can visibly see it. So make sure you blow this out, okay? So there we go there. And like I said, you don't need anything fancy. Alright, so onto the fans. More importantly is have the correct amount of airflow than the expensive fans. And I can't push that hard enough. So many people go pay $30 for these ridiculous fans because they're quiet or whatever, but I'm going to tell you how to do that. So basically what I would say is you want 2 in, 2 out is the magic number. If you don't have that, then you're going to go with 3, and you'll put 1 exhaust here, 1 exhaust here, and 1 inlet. But generally, cases like this, they come with their own fans. So pop both of these bad boys out, right? And you put one of the stock ones right here. You put your red one right here. You put your red one right here. And you put your red one up here. And an easy way to determine about your fans is this is the front face of the fan. The rear face, this here, will be your exhaust. Now these fans are actually pretty nice. I use them quite often. They'll come with these little tabs. You pull them off and you stick them around to dampen the sound. So remember, this is the inlet, this is the outlet. So on the top and the back, you want this facing out. And also in the other part, you want it facing this way. So you got 2 coming in, which come in on the back side. They blow through your case, go across your motherboard, and then this pulls it out, and that pulls it up. And then also you're going to have this big cooler here that's also going to be supported with these 2 fans to keep your CPU cool. So, okay, that's the first step. Secondly, fans like this with LEDs are not going to be brightness. And you're going to be like, why? If there's 2 ways to hook them up. There is a way where you can go, well, they don't actually show it here, but there's going to be a 4-pin Molex, which is going to connect to the power supply. That's one way to do it, but the most inefficient way, because you're going to have noise, the lights are going to be bright, but you're not going to be able to control it. So what you want to do is you want to take all your fans and you want to buy these splitters here. And I actually have a video showing you how to quiet it down. I'll put a card to that video. And what that video is going to show you is how to hook up these splitters, and what to do is to go into your BIOS, or your user interface that they call it now, and you're going to put these fans on a curve. Now since these fans have lights that don't really activate at low watts, you start to curve at about 60%. And as the temperature gains in the motherboard, and you can base it all off the CPU socket. That's a good way to do it because the CPU is going to get hot. These fans ramp up and they suck all that hot air right out of your PC. It gets cold again. Okay? And then it'll also provide quiet CPU use when you're not doing anything. Just like, or because you have 4 fans, it's just going to be quiet all the time. So we go back to our motherboard real quick. Let's look at it here. We'll probably have fan headers right here. Let me see. Now here they are. See right there? That's one. That's one right there. And there's always a middle one. That's for the fan right here. Where is it at? Right there. But I don't generally use them because aesthetically I don't want the wires running there. So what I do is I take that splitter we have and I run it. I run the fan wires all the way out here. I put 1 splitter here, attach the 2 top fans to it, and I put the other splitter here and attach the 2 front fans to it. So you technically don't need the 3 splitter. They actually add a good bit of distance too, so everything's behind the case and you won't have to see the shit. You know, all these wires are going to be hidden back here, right? They're going to be coming up through the bottom here, coming up here, and they're all going to sit like right here, and you can stuff them in here and you won't have to see them. Another thing I want to add about this case is these right here are really nice. The SSD clips they use, so with your one SSD, I'll probably put a picture to show you guys. You screw your SSD into the bottom of this here, and then you go into the front of this case. Let's go back to the front here, and you clip it in right there. And that gives you like a cool aggressive look as your SSD there, and you run the power cord and your SATA cord right there, and that gives you a really nice look to it. So here's my opinion on that. Get these, they're very useful. They're going to make your PC just quieter, run better overall, adjust the fan curve. Super simple in the BIOS. You just go in there, you toggle the fans. It'll ask you. Some of them have preset ones. You can go to performance or whatever, and that makes it even easier. I like to do the custom way. But there you have it. Now when we put all this together, it's going to look beautiful, it's going to run good, and we're going to be able to smash some games. This PC will run anything on the market. It's going to run it all on 1440p without a hitch, and it'll run in 4K pretty damn good, especially if you're playing games, these easier to run games. Like say you're playing Fortnite, easy 4K there. So there you have it. I feel like that's a complete list. That's everything you need, and you're going to get a lot of gaming out of this. Now, as I said, later on in the week, we're going to do a $1,000 build that's going to be around an RTX 2060. So if that's something more your style, you want to play more 1440p, 1080p, then I'm going to give you options for that one as well. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. I'm waiting for this Digital Storm PC to come in because I definitely want to test that. We're going to do tons of benchmarks. We're going to do a full review. We're going to break it apart. We're going to compare it to one of the computers I have on my site that's a similar price, and then I'm going to sell them off. So hope you guys enjoy. I'll catch you on the next one. My name is Andrew. This is Elite Gaming HQ. Thanks for watching, guys.